Kamen Entchev here with Tom Casselman back for our Super Bowl recap. Salute Your Sports special. What a Super Bowl it was. The Kingdom, baby, the champs. Back to back, the Kansas City Chiefs. What a phenomenal second half that game was. I'm tempted to say the whole game, but the first half was not all that great. But man, the second half was thrilling. It was incredible. It was back and forth. There was so much drama. Only the second overtime in the history of the Super Bowl. Coincidentally, both involved comebacks and wins by Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, the best of the best in the NFL. We'll break down the whole Super Bowl. Did the Chiefs win it? Did the Niners blow it? Why did the Chiefs win? What was going on the sideline with Kelsey and Andy Reid? What does this mean about Mahomes' legacy? Tom's favorite question. Everybody loves the legacy question. I do. We'll just do a quick recap on our Super Bowl experience as a whole. The commercials, the halftime show, the food, the Thanksgiving dinner Mr. Casselman ate. We'll also get into some basketball. It is basketball season. Now that the NFL is over, we got the NBA, March Madness around the corner, baseball around the corner as well. But we'll do a quick midseason recap in the NBA, just kind of focusing on, who's the MVP at the midseason mark. I know we have a couple surprising teams, kind of, the Timberwolves and Thunder. I know that's not in the rundown, but I'll touch on that real quick. Obviously, we'll go over just real quick NBA All-Star Weekend. I actually think the biggest story is Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionescu, the three-point shootout among those two. Then we'll get into betting locks of the week, where this show is unconscious. I think for 2024, Tom, I think both of us have gone over 500 every single week. We do 3 picks a week. We've either been 2-1 or 3-0. The show has been at worst 4-2, at best 6-0 over the last month. I know you're well over 500 on the year. I'm over 500. I think we were 5-1 as a show for the Super Bowl. I know both of us had the Chiefs winning. Both of us had the Chiefs covering. It was a little close for comfort. I actually picked a 4-point win for Kansas City. It was a 3-point win, but I thought it'd be just a little bit more comfortable. But really, really good week for betting locks. A lot of good sports trivia. I have 2 questions for you, Tom.
Ooh.
They are both Patrick Mahomes themed, of course.
Of course, yes.
But got to give respect to the best quarterback to ever play the position.
Oh, yeah, because we haven't been doing that at all this
No,
season.
we've never given respect. We've never talked about Mahomes on this show. What are you talking about? I'm not even wearing the Mahomes jersey today. It's the Nick Bolton jersey, man. Mizzou made. Nick Bolton had 13 tackles in the Super Bowl, Tom. The most along with Fred Warner for the game. Cannot wait to get started, Tom. How are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. It was a really wonderful game on Sunday. A lot of fun through and through, and a lot of different things to discuss in that. But of course, just right off the top, before we get into the fun that is the world of sports, just want to very briefly address the tragedy that happened. The Kansas City Chiefs on Wednesday, on Valentine's Day, Ash Wednesday, a day of celebration and also repentance. And acknowledgement of the things that we do wrong and to turn away from those things. And there was a mass shooting at the victory parade that the Kansas City Chiefs held. And there is
terrible.
It's a some would say a nuanced topic. Others would say it's fairly cut and dry as far as that goes. But not even addressing all of that stuff, just to see like the one thing that is supposed to bring us together, which is sport and the celebration of the pinnacle of athletic achievement, of team accomplishment, of what hard work and dedication can pay off as, to have something like this happens an absolute tragedy. So, I'm not even really going to say the cliche that everybody says in this case, but just, I hope everybody finds meaningful and a full recovery through the mourning process. It's not going to be an easy road to walk, especially when there's kids that are among the body count. It's just absolutely shameful.
Yeah, terrible. I mean, I hate it. Literally. Again, I don't want to get too much into this. This is a fun show. We don't talk politics on the show. But probably the worst thing about our country, Tom, is the mass shootings, and it is something that, it just never seems to be something that really gets corrected. I don't know, there's many things that could be done to make it better, but it just feels like we never really truly learn as a society, because no matter, the laws have to get better. That's obvious. But even, if laws get made, this comes down to just a, personal decision. There's always going to be that person that can find a way to, get their hands on things they shouldn't have. So just a really tragic situation. Definitely something that, I don't really like. I don't want to spend too much time on it because, I mean, really the truth
Mhm.
is it's sad. It's sad. Me, I'm a guy that loves sports because sports are fun. I don't like, shootings and, stuff like that. But definitely it was good of you to address it. And I guess I'm looking forward to talking about the good things about football, which there were plenty over Super Bowl
Mhm.
weekend. It was a fantastic weekend and a fantastic football game.
Absolutely, yeah. Getting into the uh, the final results of the game here. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs winning in a just overtime fashion, like you said. This is a fairly rare occurrence that we don't
Mhm.
often see, and so rare that seemingly the 49ers did not deem it fit to address the
Nope.
situation that could possibly arise. And you contrast
Ouch.
that. I mean, we talked about the intangibles, and we gave like a slight coaching edge, I think,
I gave a big
to
coaching
the
edge, not like a
Chiefs.
big, but a fairly big. You were more slight. I thought,
Yeah. Well, had I known the difference in the level of preparation, like I just kind of
sure,
I assumed, and that's on me. I assumed a
sure.
base level of preparation that the San Francisco 49ers were going to put into their entire game planning situation. To hear the stark contrast, this isn't the only reason why San Francisco
Sure, there's many.
lost the game, but when you look at Kansas City talking about the play every single week of the playoffs, and then on between the championship game and the Super Bowl, each of the 2 weeks. It was an off week. There was nothing in between. They had the Pro Bowl weekend where they were off, and they still addressed it multiple times. And to have players saying, "Well, we didn't really know about this," it kind of calls into a larger picture question about the validity or the wisdom of having your head coach and your coordinator be the same person as far as that goes, because little things like that
I
might slip
I'd
through the
also again,
cracks.
I'd also argue real quick. I know you're gonna get
Mhm.
into. I don't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off, but just off the top of my head, one of my favorite things that stood out is Mahomes has a shock on his face when the Niners chose to take the ball. Kyle
Yeah.
Juszczyk, there's a Niner. I know we said it in the post game conference, but there was actually a mic'd up moment where he says, "I didn't even know this is what this was." Because I think that's again, this is why I like Andy Reid a lot. I know again earlier in his career, I'm not saying that he didn't have a couple issues with clock management, but he's cleaned those up. Andy
Mhm.
Reid is an X's and O's coach, a player coach, and a guy that goes over all those details. Kyle Shanahan, to me, it seems to be more of an X's and O's guy as opposed to just a general picture. Because again, the players win the games. They could have gotten a touchdown on that first drive in the Super Bowl. We're not talking about it afterwards if that's the case, but it is definitely to your advantage to, uh, you know, play defense first. Because even if the other team gets a touchdown, then you know that you're going for it on fourth down. One of the more interesting things is what would have the Chiefs done on 3rd and 1 from like their own 35-yard line, on 4th and 1, but they don't get the third down. Do they go for it if they have the ball first? I think they
Mhm.
do, but who's to say? Maybe they kick, maybe the Niners get the winning score, and it's a whole different scenario. Like you said, not the only issue there, but it did
Yeah.
seem like the Chiefs were like overly prepared. And it does make sense because the overtime rule in the playoffs was literally put in because of Kansas City, because they beat the Bills in that overtime a couple years ago, where the Bills didn't get a chance to get the ball back. But yeah, definitely something that is really really puzzling to me.
Absolutely. And so there's a lot of different things that went into this game as far as, keys to victory for the Chiefs, and then what San Francisco kind of failed to do in sealing away the championship, because they had the lead at halftime. They were up.
Hmm.
They really put a lockdown on the Chiefs in that first half. I mean, Travis Kelsey, one catch for 1 yard in the first half
Hmm.
of the game. And so I know, like, we have this is two separate topics in terms of keys to victory for the Chiefs, and then Chiefs versus 49ers winning it or blowing it. Do you mind if we combine them? Because I have a
Sure.
feeling you
Yeah,
are going to
that's
say that the
fine.
Chiefs absolutely came out and won this one. Whereas I'm leaning a little bit more towards San Francisco letting this one slip. Although
I'm more in the
one
middle.
one one of the big reasons that it's nobody's fault. Dre Greenlaw and his injury was massive. The impact was really, really felt on the game. In fact, I don't have it written down in the notes, but I found this on Twitter, and I want to give proper uh, respect and props to the guy who found these numbers.
Yeah, they were like
Come on.
9 for 9 targeting the other
Yeah, it was 9
the
for 9. Here we
linebacker.
go. Once Dre Greenlaw went down, this is at Coach Yak. Oren Burks filled in for him. Here's how he did in coverage: 9 targets, 9 catches allowed, 1 touchdown, a 134.7 passer rating when targeted, and a lowly 32.1 PFF coverage grade. So that's one of those things where it's a little bit of both things. The Chiefs, I think, made some adjustments coming out in the second half, but missing a player as impactful as Dre Greenlaw, one of the, he and Fred Warner amazing at that linebacker position. I mean, it's an opportunity. The Chiefs took advantage of it. It's not anyone's fault that Dre Greenlaw tore his ACL just running out onto the field. He was fired up all game. We saw the impact he had in the first half, and we saw the lack of impact of him. We saw that he was missing from the game in the second half in a very real, tangible way, to say nothing of perhaps the emotional side of things. But that's one of those ones where it's neither, it's both and it's neither at the same time, as far as I'm
I
concerned
think
of
though,
that
I
impact.
think that speaks to a greater thing about the two teams though that we talked about last week, that I talked about. The Chiefs have more depth. They have a better overall team because, first off, I'm not saying the Dre Greenlaw thing did not hurt the Niners, but I do want it to be known, Tom, he's a 0-time Pro Bowler. He's a good player. He's not a great player. His whole thing, he was elevated by 2 picks against the Packers. He was doing good in the game, but he had 3 tackles. It's not like he had, 8, 9 tackles, 3, 4 tackles so far. I'm not saying it didn't hurt them, but I
Mm-hmm.
think that has gotten overblown because I think part of what the problem for the Chiefs is they didn't find Kelsey enough. So in the second half, they made it a point, let's give Kelsey the ball. Would Dre Greenlaw have done a little bit better against him? Maybe. Would he done much better? I don't think so personally. But I think it speaks to, the Chiefs, their backup offensive lineman, Nick Allegretti, I think the name. He got injured in the game, played the whole game with an injury, and he was the backup, and he stepped in. The Chiefs backup step in. So, I mean, we're talking about teams at full strength. What if the Chiefs had their guy Tooney, an all-pro offensive lineman? He wasn't there. His
Sure.
backup stepped in and got the job done. I'm not saying the Dre Greenlaw injury didn't hurt the Niners. Do you argue in a 3-point game? Was it the difference? Maybe, maybe not. But I do want to
It's
make it
one of
clear that
them.
Dre Greenlaw is not Fred Warner. He's a 0-time Pro Bowler. He's never sniffed the Pro Bowl in his life. He may never sniff it ever. So he's a solid role player, not really an impactful superstar. His MO was built up because of the 2 picks against the Packers. He stepped up in that game, but it's not a guy that is regularly a dominant defensive player. He's more of a solid to above average guy. So let's not pretend that a superstar got injured for the Niners. Because Drake
Not a
Greenlaw,
superstar, but like a
he's not a
really, really important
0-time Pro
player.
Bowler, Tom. It's easy to make the Pro
But
Bowl these days.
how is he playing this season? Like, he had a really good season.
He had a good season, not a great season. Just want to clarify, he's about the Niners' 9th or 10th best player on their team. So it's not like you had one of your truly impactful
I mean,
guys.
out of 40 something guys, that's quite a lot.
Well, out
But
of
yeah,
like
like that was one thing.
starters.
The missed PAT,
Yeah, that's a
Jake
big
Moody.
one.
We talked about special teams giving the edge to Kansas City. I mean, we saw 2 errors. That was pretty big on San Francisco. I mean, the missed PAT. Like, I know they were talking about it a bit in the broadcast. I couldn't tell if it was really like he just aimed a little low with his kick. It
I
didn't
think he
seem like they
aimed
got.
low.
Yeah, like it didn't seem like Kansas City got a ton of pressure or anything along those lines. It just seemed like a bad kick, and I couldn't tell if that was because of the hold or anything along those lines. And then there's the confusion around that the punt that Kansas City was able to recover, where Ray
And
Ray
that was
McLeod went to pick it
partially a
up.
fluke play too. I know we talk about
Yeah.
like how do you win a Super Bowl? You need the bounces to go your way. The
Hmm.
kick, I think, if he kicks it perfect, the Niners get the PAT. Simple as that. He
Sure.
messed
Yeah.
up. The Chiefs made a good play. Whatever. He messed that play up. But that punt was really, and as a Chief fan, I'll say this, lucky. It
Yeah.
was lucky.
because we couldn't really tell from like the replay or anything if it actually touched one of the other 49ers that
It
was
did
blocking. It did.
before
Okay.
the McLeod. It touched
Yeah,
before McLeod went for it.
yeah. So like I mean, that comes a little bit down to coaching, perhaps. I mean, there's a
Get out of the
fire
way.
call or something. There's a call that is meant to be like, hey, stop engaging in blocks, run to the sideline, basically. And either that call wasn't heard, it wasn't like said or anything, but that's another thing where I'm going to chalk it up as more of a mistake, more of an error on San Francisco that gave Kansas City the opportunity. So I mean, if I'm going to look at this game through and through, I'm going to say this is more on San Francisco not seizing the opportunity to win. I mean, it took until overtime for Christian McCaffrey to hit his over on carries, which is ridiculous because he's the best player on that offense, the most impactful player as far as what he can do. It just really felt like, I know the Baltimore Ravens fell into this trap a little bit of saying we want to show that Lamar is more than what he is, which is a mistake. I think you should take pride in who you are and what your success is and what's gotten you here. It felt a little bit like the ball was in Brock Purdy's hands a little bit too much and not enough in the hands of George Kittle, who only had 2 catches, to Brandon Ayuk, who only had 3 catches. You're not getting the ball to your playmakers. I mean, it took forever for Christian McCaffrey. So part of that absolutely is on the Kansas City defense. But what is their strength? Pass coverage. L'Jarius Sneed, Trent McDuffie played phenomenal. And I don't think San Francisco adjusted nearly enough with the run game and using that as a weapon to keep the ball in their possession away from Patrick Mahomes and extend drives, give their defense a break.
Yeah, so real quick, I think I partially agree with you, but not entirely, because I know it's one of those, if people are going to question Dan Campbell for doing what he does and going for all these extra calls and stuff, we got to realize that sometimes things are game to game. We know Steve Spagnuolo, who thankfully the Chiefs have re-signed. He'll be back. Kelsey's back. Reed is back. The three-peat is happening, Tom. Mark that bad boy down. First one ever. But I think a lot of folks are saying, like, why didn't they go for in the overtime? It was 3rd and 4. They should have ran the ball twice to McCaffrey. But some of that is in-game adjustment and seeing what works during the game. And actually, Christian McCaffrey in the run game was completely stopped by the Kansas City Chiefs. He had 22 carries for 80 yards, 3.6 yards per carry. The 49ers as a team had 31 carries for 110 yards, 3.5 attempts as a team. Now they had 39 pass attempts. So, I mean, I know they're a little bit more of a running team, but in the NFL, like, 31 out of 70 attempts running, that's actually pretty okay. Maybe they go a little bit more on McCaffrey, but he was getting stopped the whole game. And it didn't even take a football mind to do that. My girlfriend's mom was watching the game, and she's like, they keep running up the middle, and they only get like 1 yard, 2 yards. I think Kansas City's defense made an adjustment. The 49ers were not able to run the ball, and that was the Chiefs, part of, where they succeeded, because their defense was great pretty much the entire football game. I know McCaffrey had a bunch of receiving yards, but as far as him running the ball, you keep McCaffrey to 3.6 yards a run and 0 rushing touchdowns and a fumble. That's a big key right there for the Chiefs. The biggest key outside of, I agree, the coaching, I think, mattered a little bit. The Chiefs were more prepared in overtime. Like we talked about earlier, technically the Niners should have let the Chiefs get the ball first so they know what to do on 4th down. The special teams, which is something that we talked about a lot last week. Harrison Butker versus Jake Moody. Ironically, Jake Moody made 2 50-plus yard field goals, and you could still argue he's the reason they lost, because, him missing that PAT allowed the Chiefs to go for a field goal at the end of regulation instead of a touchdown, tying the game, sending the game to overtime. That muff punt, whether it was them missing the call, yelling it out, whether it was bad luck, it was still ultimately a special teams mistake. So there was 2 clear mistakes they made, maybe 3 with, judging the overtime. So definitely think there is some of Kansas or San Francisco blowing it, but I think a lot of it was Kansas City also really, really being good on defense, because they stopped McCaffrey. And I know you talk about their corners. They've been doing this all year. So the fact that Ayuk The fact that Kittle, the fact that Debo didn't have great games, that was on their corners. And this is one of those games where if you look at the box score, you're not really going to see the full story as far as the Chiefs' pressure, because Brock Purdy had one sack only, got sacked one time, but how many times did he have to throw the ball away where he was pressured on key plays? And that's the biggest difference in the game. The Chiefs were more clutch. Third down conversions, Tom Casselman. The Chiefs were 9 for 19. The 49ers were 3 for 12. Now, you look at the end of the regulation when the Niners kicked the field goal to go up 3 points. It was a third, and I think it was 4 or 5 with after the 2-minute warning. If the Niners convert that first down, they can run the clock out and kick a field goal virtually as time expires and win the game. What do? They didn't get the field goal. It wasn't a sack, but the Chiefs pressured Brock Purdy, and they blocked his pass. Key third down play going to Kansas City. We go to the overtime. It's 3rd and 4. Jennings, who was actually San Francisco's MVP for that game, threw a touchdown pass, had a touchdown catch as well. He is wide open in the end zone for the touchdown that put San Francisco ahead. What happened? Brock Purdy did not have time to throw. The Chiefs' pressure got in his face. He had to throw the ball away. He had no chance. It wasn't Brock Purdy's fault. He played really good football, by the way, Brock Purdy, in that game. He just did not have a chance to find the open receivers. Even in another play, I think it was either the 3rd or 4th quarter, Deebo Samuel was wide open in the end zone, but they got to Purdy. He had to throw the ball away. So it was those key moments, those little clutch plays on 3rd down, on 4th down, where Kansas City was super clutch. And that's what they do. That's what's called championship DNA. They're a championship team. The San Francisco 49ers are a very, very good team, but they don't have that moment in those clutch moments. So I think this was a combination. I think San Fran blew it a little bit, but I think I would say a little bit more on the Chiefs as a whole, having that comeback. I think the problem with opposing teams is, you give Mahomes time to stick around. You got to put him away because he's going to figure out a way in the playoffs, in the 4th quarter, in the overtime. You can only stop Mahomes and Kelsey for so long. They stopped them the first half, but after that, it was tough. I mean, that red zone possession where they muffed the punt and the Chiefs got it inside the red zone, went up ahead. That was a very, very massive play as well. Just seems like when it came to the overtime, the Chiefs were more ready. They were more fresh. They were more rejuvenated. I mean, Mahomes didn't miss a pass in the overtime. Every single pass, 8 for 8. He had more than 20 rush yards. He was the first guy ever to do that in that stage, in that moment. Game-winning drive, 20-plus rush yards, 8 for 8 completions. So I think the Chiefs executed really, really well in the second half on offense. I think they executed well the whole game on defense. Their defense was what it was all year, didn't give up more than 27 points. So overall, Kansas City just simply was better coached. They were better on special teams. They were more clutch in the big moments. But there was 1 or 2 plays where San Fran kind of blew it too. So I say kind of a combo of both. And that's really how it is almost every time. Like if you're up double digits in a Super Bowl, double digits in a game, you're up in the second half. It's usually not just one team doing it, the other team not doing it. It's a combo of both. Because the Chiefs, as good as they played, Mahomes had a pick, Pacheco had a fumble. It's not like they were absolutely perfect because they had 1 or 2 mistakes too. But, their mistakes were not as costly because the Niners didn't turn those turnovers into points. Meanwhile, the Chiefs turned the turnovers into points. That's what you got to do. Turn turnovers into points. Kansas City did it. The Niners did not.
Another thing you have to do when things aren't necessarily going your way is advocate for yourself, although perhaps Travis Kelce was a little overzealous in doing so. It was caught on the cameras. Everybody saw him, dressed a little bit. Kelce getting all up in Andy Reid's business. I mean, have it written as getting in his face, but he got into his ribs, his
mustache,
entire torso. He was right there screaming at his coach. And after the game, he did address it and he did apologize. And it's one of those heat of the moment things. It's definitely we see the dichotomy of Travis Kelce, because off the field on the New Heights podcast, we see this goofy, fun-loving guy. SNL, he was really good on SNL. But I think in Travis Kelce, more than a lot of different guys, we see that switch flip when the game's on. I know there are a lot of people joking like, "Hey, my boo is here, and you're only giving me one catch for a
One
yard
catch.
in the
One
first
catch.
half. Like, what are we
We
doing
need more
here?"
Taylor Swift. I was watching the broadcast. All these women, my girlfriend's mom friends are like, "Where is Taylor Swift?" And she
I
wasn't there the first half
the
because Kelsey
Super
wasn't doing
Bowl.
anything the first half.
I think the Super Bowl broadcast team walked the line very, very finely for their audience. I think that they would rather have more folks who are perhaps casual. I'm going to say casual fans, perhaps newfound fans. They would rather have them clamoring for more Taylor Swift than the kind of old guard, very conservative, shall we say,
We
to use
just
a little bit
can't
of a
win.
chart.
It's too much or it's too little. We can't
They
win.
the broadcast, I feel, made the very conscious decision: keep it under a minute.
Okay.
Don't give
Well, they've
any
kept it under a minute
ammunition.
almost the whole time.
Yeah, it was no. Somebody clocked it. 54 seconds of screen time for Taylor Swift, and I feel like that was the line that they wanted to walk, as far
Okay.
as keeping one audience perhaps a little bit happier, or perhaps not as angry as another audience. So
Someone's
that's
always going to be mad, Tom.
I know, but you gotta. There's I'm trying to think
So
of
you're
what
saying
it
they
is.
hit the perfect medium of having enough Taylor but not too
I think
much.
so. I think that they, like,
Okay.
in general, they probably might want a little more, but if we're going to look at it from a PR perspective, let's go for a little less Taylor Swift and a little more, because I know that there are
Okay.
a lot of folks that gripe about that sort of thing. So
Some
it's
of
like,
us
don't
absolutely love.
alienate your base. That's what I'm getting
Some
to.
of us here love every second of Taylor Swift on the screen.
Oh, there's a lot of people who don't, and claim they
That's
don't watch
me.
the game, but they
Yeah.
do.
Anyway.
It's a bunch about nothing. Like,
No, but back to the Kelsey play though.
yeah,
Or go ahead.
I don't necessarily. I think that's also a good bit to do about nothing. I mean, we see this happen all the time. When we saw Tom Brady blow up at coordinators and coaches, however many times, like, there are a lot of guys. It's a passionate, group of guys. You can't get to that level of sport and not have that level of drive, that level of passion. I do think he crossed a line,
Sure.
but
He made a mistake.
I don't find Travis Kelce to be a habitual line stepper as far as that. I mean, he's an instigator. We saw that in the Baltimore game where he's, inducing penalties and stuff like that. So he knows how to walk that line really, really well. I think he just went a little over because it was after a really big play with Pacheco fumbling in the red zone there.
Yeah, and I don't know if you just wanted to be in that situation. You wanted the ball, which is you
Probably.
want your players hungry. I will say this: the message got across though, because the second half you got 8 catches instead of 1, 8 for 92. First half you had 1 for 1. I think that's what kind of separates the Chiefs from maybe some of the other really good football teams. Like some football teams, in a moment like that, you could argue that they're unraveling, they're losing their cool. Maybe it's a cliche, maybe it's not true. But we kind of had a similar thing with the Eagles this year. There was on multiple instances where A.J. Brown was saying, I want the ball, where A.J. Brown was mad at the quarterback. He was mad at the coach. We've seen the same thing with Stephon Diggs in the past with the Buffalo Bills. Quite frankly, we've seen it with a lot of wide receivers. I know Kelsey is a tight end, but he's a virtual wide receiver, a pass catcher of
Yeah,
the
pretty
ball.
much.
It's pretty safe to call him, pretty much a wide receiver. And now some of those things do impact the team. They do impact the chemistry, those little X factors. But Kansas City, they're a Super Bowl team. And I think Andy Reid and Travis Kelsey have been together long enough. You kind of heard Andy Reid even say it. He's like, I know Travis, loves me. I love Travis. We're a great team. We love the environment. So they're good enough to know to keep their cool in the moment and move past it. Because I agree, yeah, Kelsey crossed the line, but I mean, it's sports. Sports get emotional, Tom. And I think that's part of what makes that situation work really well for the Chiefs is that it didn't let them affect the game. It didn't affect their choices. They ended up doing really, really good. He could have just got his message across just a little bit better than how we did, because obviously there's a lot of people watching. It's a chance for him to be a role model, the classic Charles Barkley, I'm not a role model type situation. Because Travis Kelce right now is a I mean, he might be the most biggest name in football right now, perhaps even bigger than Mahomes, given
Mhm.
his relationship with Travis Kelsey. If not the biggest, certainly a top 2 or 3 figure in the NFL. So I think that's something where he's, it's another extra layer to him because he even said it. I'm used to being famous in Kansas City, maybe being famous among, big football fans. Now I'm famous nationally and internationally.
Mhm.
So it is a whole different, look at Travis Kelsey. Now, there is a lot of people, a lot of players have said that stuff like that happens more often than we think. The cameras don't just happen to get it every time. Obviously, in a Super Bowl, there's extra cameras. Every moment gets looked at, more. But I think it was kind of cool in that you saw what Mahomes did in the post-game conference. He kind of, covered for Kelsey, saying he's a good guy, he's passionate. It wasn't one of those things where it was an internal fight. They moved past it. So not a big deal to me. Like you said, did he cross the line? Probably. Does he cross the line often? Not really. It's kind of one of those, like Draymond Green crosses the line too much. He toes the line. Sometimes it works, but he crosses too much. I haven't seen Kelsey do it too much. So I think he just made a mistake in the moment, and he'll be fine. The Chiefs will be fine.
Absolutely. And moving into now a
My
topic
favorite
that is,
question.
oh, it's so
My favorite
tiring.
question.
I'm
My favorite
all
question
right.
of the show.
What does this do for the Patrick Mahomes legacy? Look, I'm going to be more tepid. I'll let you get like fired up and everything. For me, it doesn't do
Just so
anything that
just so
he
you know,
hasn't already
Tom,
accomplished.
this is the lead story in a lot of the sports shows. I have this at 5 or 6 down for you, so I want to start you not in a bad mood over
I
this.
appreciate you looking out for my mental health and well
Yes,
being on this
I
topic
got you, Tom.
because it like this is I really don't like the conversation around chasing ghosts, so to speak.
Or chasing
Um,
goats.
for me, yeah, you could do that. For me, this win does nothing really for Patrick Mahomes in terms of what I think legacy should be defined as, where he's already one in the pantheon of all time greats, and to my mind, it's a round table. It's not an organized linear hierarchy for me. It's an organized table, and there's
Oh,
always room for another chair in the pantheon of all time greats. And Patrick Mahomes, to my mind, has already earned his place there. I understand that for folks that like having the conversation of Mahomes, Brady, just like folks like having the conversation of Brady and Montana, I guess would be the one prior. I'm sure
yeah.
there were guys griping about Montana versus Unitas or Star or what have you.
Of course there were.
Like that,
Of
it's a
course.
conversation that there are a lot of folks that really enjoy having for whatever reason they like to enjoy having that
It's fun,
conversation.
Tom. Let us have fun.
For, yeah,
We're sports
I'm
fans.
saying you all can have fun. I'm just saying Patrick Mahomes is already the greatest quarterback of his era. He's already a pretty much surefire Hall of Famer. There's not a whole lot of athletes across sport that at the age of 28 can say that. Like some of his contemporaries would be like Mike Trout, for example, where at the age of 28, you'd say, looking at his numbers, he's in the Hall of Fame.
But no
Perhaps Shohei
championships.
Ohtani with what he's doing.
No
Um,
championships. I know, different
well,
sport,
but
but
very
still,
different sport, yeah.
very
But
different sport.
just in terms of their level of accomplishment, I mean, I think winning a second Super Bowl in a row is a special thing. But as far as the way that I process watching different athletes over different eras, he's already the greatest quarterback of his era, and will continue to be until the next kind of generation comes along in a couple of years, so to speak. Because defining quarterback generations, it's a little bit odd to do that because you got good guys coming in sometimes every year, something along those lines. So it's not clearly defined. But yeah, it's definitely just the next step, the next cementing of his legacy as an all-time great quarterback in the NFL. So for me, I don't really think it does a ton. It basically just continued proving the point that has already been proven, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so there's two ways to look at this question. There's one way to look at it where, the way you look at it for you, the way I
Hmm.
look at it for me, I'm, when I look at the all-time greats, which is something that I absolutely love to do because it's fun. It's fun, Tom. Obviously I can acknowledge comparing eras is hard. That's a no-brainer. But, whenever we do this argument, we have to take many things into account. So for me, when I go over my greatest players of all time, obviously championships matter. No one's saying they don't, but I obviously am more in that camp where sports are a team game for me
Mhm.
personally. So I can't sit here and say that, this guy's the GOAT just because he has the most championships. I personally think that argument is flawed, but I think as a society, that's not the way people look at it. So for me, I mean, obviously, you win another championship, you come up clutch again in the Super Bowl. It has to increase your legacy. Uh, you'd be crazy to say that it doesn't. So obviously, I think it did increase his legacy. In my book, he's the best player that's ever played the game in football. There's no better player that's ever played in the NFL. He just needs that longevity because if he retires tomorrow, yeah, Brady's got more career yards, more career touchdowns, 7 rings to 3. Brady's the GOAT right now, but the clear-cut trajectory that Mahomes is on, if he can keep going, he's going to pass up Brady across the board, and he probably only needs 5 or 6 Super Bowls, but honestly, with the team he has, he might get 7 like Tom Brady. Who's to say that he won't? I think Mahomes at this stage in his career has, way better stats than Brady, even less turnovers than Brady. Talk about the era that we're in right now, the passing era, but he's having more pass attempts than Brady and less turnovers. He's even got, more Super Bowl MVPs, more league MVPs, the same amount of rings at 28 as Tom Brady. But for the society as a whole, Tom, this is massive, I think. Maybe not as massive for you and I, but when you look at the overall grand scheme of things and people that are looking at legacy, obviously he could get injured. Anything is possible, Tom, but assuming he plays at least another 7, 8 years and is even close to the level he's been, this Super Bowl right here cements him as, at worst, the number 2 quarterback of all time. Because there's only 3 guys ever that have 3 championships and at least 2 MVPs for quarterbacks. That's Mahomes, Brady, and Montana. That's a club he's already part of. He's won 3 Super Bowl MVPs. That's only 2 less than Tom Brady, another record that he's now chasing Patrick Mahomes. So he's now had, Tom, 3 of the top 5 postseason QBR runs of all time. The number 1, which was in 2019, and then the 3 and the 5 the last 2 years. So 3 of the best 5 QBRs in the history of a postseason run for a quarterback. 3 of the top 5 sounds better than 2 of the top 5. I'll tell you that. This specific run in itself is one of the most iconic of his career because he faced your favorite stat. Here it comes, Tom. Your favorite stat, the best DVOA in the history of the NFL for a team to win the Super Bowl. Regular season DVOA, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Niners, as well as the Dolphins, the 4 teams he beat. No player ever or no team ever has gone through a tougher postseason schedule based on DVOA. He beat the 3 best teams out there. The Ravens, the Niners, and the Bills were the other 3 best teams in the NFL. So that has to count for something. Also, I mean, the guy, look at this, Tom. He is the only quarterback ever to go 8 for 8 on a drive with 27 plus rushing yards in the last 30 years of any quarterback ever. So that's pretty impressive. Chiefs are now 5-1 with Mahomes when trailing 10 plus points in the playoffs. The rest of the NFL in that scenario is 6 out of 48. He just tied Tom Brady for most postseason, comeback winning drives. Just tied Tom Brady for that mark. He's 1 win behind Joe Montana for the 2nd most playoff wins ever. This was, in many ways, arguably his most impressive playoff run. But then again, last year he did it on 1 leg. I'm running out of things to say, Tom. He keeps doing it over and over and over and over again. So as far as society as a whole, it's kind of hard to watch what he did this year, what he did last year, and not say that he's not, at the current moment, worst case, the 2nd best quarterback ever. I've got him as my GOAT. Still needs some more years to get that official status, but I think it has solidified him in that Mount Rushmore of 2. You talk about a round table. Yeah, it's a round table, but there's 2 guys at the front. The round table might have Peyton Manning on it, maybe Montana, maybe Drew Brees. but there's two guys at the head of the table, and Mahomes
It's
and
round,
Brady
though. There
are
is no
holding
home.
hands next to
Oh,
each other. No,
but see,
your
and
table
see,
round. They're the backup table. It's like the weddings. You have your first table.
oh, they're
That's
the
Mahomes.
sweetheart table.
They're
Okay.
the sweethearts table. Mahomes and Brady have their
I mean,
own table, and the rest
they
have.
do share a Madden cover.
They do. I'm just telling Tom. You can't sit here and say after what we just saw that he is not at worst the second best quarterback ever. I think it's a massive win for his legacy. I think it solidifies him on that Mount Rushmore of two. There's only room for two on this table,
See,
Tom. You take your round table elsewhere.
but see, like just like with the language that you're using, as far as Patrick Mahomes just needs longevity to be considered the GOAT or what, like, but and then you said, but he's my GOAT. I think that's where the conversation begins and ends, as far
Well, I
as
think
it's
I
like
look
it's
at
an
it this
opinion
way.
based thing, and I
I
know we
look at
can look
it
and
this
use
way.
stats and fact, but
Part of the GOAT debate is like how much does longevity matter? How much does a person's prime matter? Because I look at it this way: Mahomes is better than Brady ever was for me. But let's just say for whatever reason, Mahomes just completely fades in his mid 30s. He doesn't play in his 40s. Then I could say like, well, Mahomes was better during the best part of his career, but Brady did stuff at 35 and 40 that Mahomes didn't. And that
I
has to matter for
suppose.
something. Because honestly, Tom, for me, you know me, I'm not all about rings. I look at Mahomes or I look at Brady versus Manning. And if we go up to about age 35, 36, the prime of their careers, they were pretty darn close for me. The reason why Brady won me over for the GOAT over Manning isn't necessarily the 7 Super Bowls, but it's the fact of what he did later in his career and the fact of that Peyton Manning wasn't there later in his career. So there has to be some sort of longevity argument to it.
I suppose, yeah.
My point is that I think Mahomes is better than Brady. I think it's kind of like Jordan in the late 80s. Jordan was clearly the best player to have ever played the game, but Magic and Larry Bird had all those championships. They had more resume, and he had to win the championships to reach that status. Mahomes now, though, that's what's scary, Tom. He's got the championships. He's got the stats. He's got the it factor. He's got everything, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, literally, we say, look at the stats on paper, watch the game on the field, look at the championships. I mean, he's got all of it, Tom. He's got all of it. And the more of these he gets, think about this. He wins one more championship. The only quarterback ever with more championships than him is Tom Brady. So I think this is a big legacy, the third one. The back-to-back is big too. Only a handful of quarterbacks have done that before all time. Hadn't seen that since 03, 04. And he did back-to-back without Tyreek Hill. I think that has to count for something as well. A lot of folks thought the Chiefs were going to be, it was supposed to be a rebuilding year last year. This was an off year, and they won the Super Bowl both times with Patrick Mahomes, and he was instrumental in it
I don't know about rebuild
for sure. That's what they were saying, Tom.
I know. I like whenever you have the players that the Chiefs have. I understand like maybe a retool. Like they weren't actually rebuilding though. Like they were always going to be competitive for the division. I mean, we can talk about this on a different time because it's not in the rundown. But you look at the longevity of the Chiefs organization as far as even before Patrick Mahomes got there. I think for like 5-6 years before they drafted Patrick Mahomes, or before he started, rather, they had a winning season every single season. I think their worst year was like 9-7. So that's like an
but they weren't winning in the
organizational thing.
playoffs. They had no AFC championship.
Yeah, but like that's still to me that's still a successful organization to be in the playoffs for that amount of time. It's kind of like the Steelers. I still regard the Steelers as a great organization, even though they haven't won a Super Bowl in a while. They're still consistently there, providing a competitive team every year.
Here's the stats. Since the QBR stat since 06, highest QBRs in the postseason run. Mahomes 2019 1, Mahomes like 2023 3, 2022 5. And given all the drops, I think part of what gets lost, and this is what's really special about Mahomes that gets very underrated about him. Andy Reid spoke about this, Tom. His ability to understand the game of football. Because when he first came in, he was just slinging the ball around. But his football IQ right now is up there with Brady and Manning for the smartest guy ever. He says Mahomes comes off the field and he tells me exactly what he's seeing. It allows me to make adjustments to my offense. So Also, he instills a lot of confidence in his teammates. All the drops in the regular season, all these mistakes. McCole Hardman, MVS, these guys both got touchdowns in the Super Bowl because they stuck with it. The leadership of Patrick Mahomes also is really, really good. Not just the football arm talent. That's what's scary about him, because the football IQ of Brady and Manning, is next level, but he's got better physical tools, and he's already reaching that level of having at least similar football IQ as those guys. And that's
Mhm.
kind of what we saw, that maturity of him this season and this postseason run. Just incredible. I know I don't want to, I can go on forever about Mahomes. I won't, but I
Oh, I
can.
know.
I can. I love Mahomes. I just think he is the Michael Jordan of football. And I think I would still lean Messi. Messi is my favorite athlete ever as far as the most dominant athlete in skill positions. But I think when it's all said and done, we might be talking about Mahomes as the best athlete in North American sports, and right up there with
Mhm.
Messi in the team sports. If he could do what he's on pace to do, you know, it's nuts. And Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson, Josh Allen, all these guys, they wanted to, put him in Mahomes's league, and he showed that he's in his own league. He's a step above the rest, Mr. Patty Mahomes.
Yeah, well, in terms of being a step above the rest, Common, as far as, I guess ranking Super Bowls, is this among the best? I mean, is it among the best we've seen? And I actually think the answer to that might be no, simply because we've been spoiled. If you look at the history of the NFL and the history of the Super Bowl, especially in recent years, we've been blessed with a lot of really, really good games. I mean, you like just last year, the Eagles and the Chiefs, I'd say that was a better, not necessarily more compelling, because each Super Bowl is very
See, that's
compelling
why
in
it's
its own
so
right.
hard.
But yeah, like that's why, again, as far as like ranking them, this is up there among the all-time, great games, because of how close it was, because of how the second half played out. I'd say, as far as like the entertainment value, I agree with what you said earlier in the show. The first half, not quite so entertaining. The first half, not necessarily was sloppy's not the right word, but it felt clunky as far as watching the game. And it really picked up toward the end of the game. And I
I
think
thought you
part of
liked
that,
defense, Tom.
I do. No, like I do enjoy the defense, and I appreciate that. I can also understand how aesthetically that's not what a lot of folks like. I know there's a lot of people cracking jokes where you've got your Swifties, your casual fans saying, "Hey, what's so great about this football game?" People feeling about football perhaps how I feel about soccer at times. But that's beside the point.
Boo! Tom,
Gotta
boo!
Hey, you brought Messi into the conversation, so they're available
Boo!
for catching a little bit of smoke. But um, the second half, I think, like the second half is what made the game really compelling, and the overtime is so it also played a huge,
Overtime
huge
was
role in that. But
amazing.
like, if we look at the past few Super Bowls, I mean, Chiefs winning by 3 over the Eagles last year. Year prior, the LA Rams winning by 3 over the Bengals, and that came down to the very last drive. I mean, we've had literally 3 Super Bowls in a row now that have come down to essentially like a last drive type of scenario. I know a little bit different with the Chiefs and Eagles, because there was that defensive holding call that basically ran out the clock and kind of and took away that opportunity that the Eagles otherwise may have had for that last drive of the game. But I mean, under 2 minutes, and the game is still yet to be decided. That makes it a compelling Super Bowl. So it was really, really good. I mean, it certainly was better than like the New England 13-3 victory over the
Worst Super
Rams,
Bowl
or
of
the
all time.
Buccaneers 31-9 over the Chiefs. As far as the compelling goes, I mean, I actually liked the 13-3 Super Bowl.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, the fact that Rex Burkhead's the only touchdown that scores, like that's kind of fun for me. Seahawks 43, Broncos 8. That's not particularly fun, in my opinion. But yeah, I think we've
Seahawks
been on a
Pats was
really,
good.
really good. Yeah, that was a great one.
Pats Falcons, Pats
Yeah.
Giants times two, Pats Eagles,
hmm
Rams Titans, Rams Patriots. There's a lot of good ones.
we have been extraordinarily blessed as far as good compelling Super Bowls have gone. And I mean, that's the vision that I think was Paul Tagliabue, who was really big on promoting parity in the NFL. And it's for exactly this reason. You look at the number of single score games across the league throughout the year. The difference, quote unquote, between the good teams and the bad teams is a bit of a gap. but like for the 26, 25 teams in the middle, everything's pretty homogenous. Where if you just have a play go here or there in September, October, November, you're talking about playoffs versus being in the top half of the draft. So, I mean, this is among one of the really really good Super Bowls, really really compelling. I mean, if you want to like rank it somewhere in the greatness scale of things, you can. But I'd say this was definitely one of the great games.
Yeah, so I mean, I took this question as Super Bowls I've seen because
Mhm.
obviously I have watched some old Super Bowls on tape. I've seen highlights, I've heard things, but I kind of look at it since 1999, the way I look at this question, because I can't say I watched Super Bowl one, Super Bowl two. There's
Yeah, yeah.
58 Super Bowls. I've watched actually less than half of them, Tom. About a
Mhm.
half with, I went back and watched the 85 Bears Super Bowl, the whole game, because I found it online as a Bear fan. I've seen a lot of those NFL films where I've watched almost the whole game, but roughly I've watched pretty much, I want to say, what is that, 24, 25 fully out of 58. About half the Super Bowls I've actually watched. But I took this as since 1999, the Rams Titans one was the first one I watched. Obviously, there's two different ways I'm taking this question. So, me, I'm a Bears fan and a Chiefs fan. So, obviously, for me, this is one of the three best Super Bowls I've ever watched as a fan because my team won. And I think this one was actually very, very similar to the one the first time against the Niners Chiefs. A little bit of a slow start. The Chiefs closed fast. This one was better, though, because it was literally down to the last possession, went to overtime. So comparing it to the one last year is really, really tricky because this is the classic, like, where do we land on what's the best game? How much, credence do we put to what's the best finish? Because I think like the Super Bowl in 2022 for four quarters was like the first two quarters were considerably better. It was probably a better overall game for the entire watching of it. But this last Super Bowl was more dramatic. And we got 5 quarters of football, baby. 3, 4, 5. I know, what is it? The overtime. It was almost a full quarter that overtime we played. So we got bonus football. We got to see Arnold Schwarzenegger's Neighbor commercial a second time. I got to eat more chips, pacing nervously. I was like, I felt pretty good about the Super Bowl before the game. I felt good about it last year against the Eagles, but I was more nervous as a sports fan watching this Super Bowl than the one before as a Chief fan. Other than the messy World Cup final and maybe the quarterfinal as well for the Argentina, this was probably the third most tense I've ever been watching a sporting event. Just the feeling where, your heart starts beating fast, the stress, the notch in the stomach, Tom. I thankfully went with chips instead of alcohol, but that's actually not necessarily much better anyway. But I had potato chips, just
At least
um,
drive.
um, um, something to do. I would lean slightly better overall. Again, last year's game was a little bit better overall, more high scoring, but given how dramatic it was at the end, this was probably the most satisfying Super Bowl as a sports fan I have ever watched in my life. Now, I try to take my objectiveness into account. If we took out the fact that I'm a Chief fan, this has to be somewhere in that 3 or 4 range since 1999. I think, but then again, I think about this like the Patriots, Falcons. I got to go back and rewatch it. It was all Atlanta. I think it's the most dramatic Super Bowl, a 25-point comeback. It has to be the best in my era, taking my bias out of it. But then again, like, was it compelling a team being down so much? I'd have to go back and watch it. The Philly New England Super Bowl with the Philly special was a high scoring game back and forth. That was really good. The Cardinals Steelers with the Santonio Holmes catch at the end was iconic. We had, the Giants upsetting the Patriots twice, but those were a little bit lower scoring games as well. So I think this one was better than that. I think the, Patriots Seahawks one was really good. I don't know. It's hard to pick just one Super Bowl as the best since I started watching. This one has to be up there though. Probably somewhere in that 3-4 range if we're being objective. Definitely a really, really good Super Bowl and a fantastic second half. Because I think a lot of folks will block that out of their memory. Like the first half wasn't great. Everybody remembers the ending, and this was probably the most dramatic ending ever. We had overtime, and both teams had a chance to score. It wasn't the Patriots
Mhm.
Falcons where the Patriots got a touchdown and it was over. And the fact that the 49ers didn't know the overtime rules added a little bit of extra drama to it. So it's hard to pick just one, but this has to be up there for one of the all-time Super Bowls, no doubt.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate the broadcast and the call didn't live up to at least the television broadcast. And Kevin
Oh,
Harlan, as always, delivered.
did you sync
Um,
up?
I did not end up syncing up. I ended up just sticking with the regular game. I actually had a brief moment of panic because I went to flip on the game, and I got the rabbit ears, and I wasn't getting CBS.
Uh-oh.
So I had to have the TV rescan all the channels. I had to look up how to do that because it's been forever since I had to
Oh,
go and
I
find where
remember that.
exactly in the settings. So I was able to get everything online, but basically it was a combination of getting dinner on the table, having dinner prepped, plus finding the channel. Left no time for me to sync up the call or everything. But of course, listening to the call after the fact, and Kevin Harlan, as always, did the moment justice.
Which is
Um,
great.
let's do some quick hitters here on some of the stuff around the Super Bowl. Of course, beyond the game, it's known for the commercials, the halftime show, the food. So, in terms of the favorite commercials, comment, I've got three. We might have some overlap on this one. And I made a point of watching as many of the commercials as I could at the expense of the halftime show. So I'll let
Okay.
you comment on the halftime show. I saw none of it, nary a second, because I was
Oh.
putting all the food away, and that was my moment of okay, get everything else handled on that front. I sacrificed the halftime show, but the commercials I thought across the board were pretty good. I mean, Dunkings was fantastic with Ben
That's a
Affleck
good
being
one.
ridiculous, Tom Brady showing up out of nowhere and being really into the role. But my favorite is just the dry delivery from Matt Damon and his embarrassment. I thought that was phenomenal. Of course, the Budweiser Clydesdale commercial is
With the dog
always
as
a
well.
classic. There's nothing to not like about that commercial. But I think my favorite one, and I know it's going to come off a little preachy or whatever, but the Dove commercial about what causes girls and young women to quit sports and its negative body image, and to say, hey, promote competition, promote inclusiveness, promote doing what you pursuing what you want to pursue in the best way possible, and not letting the I would say the superfluous but no less damaging side comments or side thoughts detract from that. I thought that was a great message, a great advertisement that had a really nice message. So it was good having a fun commercial, a classic, and then one with a really positive message for the audience.
Yeah, I loved all of those. That Duncan one was especially really funny. I did have actually three others written down.
Go
My
for it.
favorite, of course, has to be Messi, because it's a Messi commercial with Michelob Ultra. He's just dribbling around the beach. But I also like that Ted Lasso was in it. You haven't seen Ted Lasso yet, have you?
No,
Oh, you
it's
got
not
to
on the
check it out.
list.
So
No.
Jason Sudeikis and Ted Lasso was in the commercial as well. So was Dan Marino. So I mean, I'm a big Marino fan as well. Tom is a NFL stats guy. So I mean, I had my favorite athlete, Messi. Maybe my favorite actor, not maybe not my favorite, but one of my favorite actors, one of my favorite TV show characters ever, Ted Lasso. Then one of my favorite quarterbacks, Dan Marino. It's hard not to like something that has guys that you just love. So that commercial was fantastic. Objectively, the funniest commercial was the Arnold Schwarzenegger. Neighbor,
Oh, you like that
neighbor,
one?
neighbor, 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 neighbor. I was just laughing, Tom. That's my birthday twin, July 30th, me and
Oh,
Arnold.
there you go.
I'll be back, baby. That commercial, I think, was definitely the funniest. It had me rolling over laughing. Then we got to see it a second time. Thank you, overtime. So that probably, outside of my messy bias, that was probably the best one. I also am a big Beckham fan. I love the Beckhams, David and Victoria Beckham, Posh Spice. I watched their Netflix documentary recently.
Mhm.
It was fantastic, by the way. There was some funny jokes with them. That was a really good one. So overall, I would say the same thing as you. The Clydesdale one I mean, Budweiser never, always delivers on those. Literally, I think of, Super Bowl commercials. I think of Budweiser. It's the first thing I think of. So they've never been bad. So
Mm,
overall, pretty good experience for the commercials. As far as the halftime show, first off, I'm not necessarily a critic, Tom, because I get to watch this show for free on my television. So I know a lot of guys will analyze everything about the halftime show. Usually the guys that get picked to do it are pretty big megastars. Arguably, Usher is a little bit lower tier than normal, but he's still a pretty big name. I love the
mhm,
song, Yeah, Yeah, Yeah. One of my favorite songs. I would say off the top of my head, I'm not going to sit here and rank them. I didn't pull out a ranking of Super Bowl halftime shows, but I would say this one was give or take about average. It wasn't spectacular, but it was definitely good. I do think the roller skates were really good, though. I think it was lacking a little bit to start, but once they brought the roller skates out, they were, singing the song and they were roller skating. That was a nice little touch by
mhm.
Usher. So roller skates, I would say, saved the halftime show. That was a very, very good touch on Usher. So I give the halftime show like a B minus, which is, good, not great. And I give the commercials probably like an A minus,
Mhm.
pretty good. And the game I would give,
Temu getting 3 ads really brought that average down.
oh, they spent a lot of money on that. Holy cow.
I saw a joke where, it was like some Temu executive accidentally paid for 3 ads to run instead of just 1, just, like, accidentally submitted it too many times.
I wonder if they get a discount for the second one. Like the first one cost you 2 million, the second one's just 1 million.
No, for them, it should cost more. Anywho's, for food, I know that we had a couple different experiences. You had to endure, the common plebeian, experience for the Super Bowl party. Whereas I dined a little on the finer side of things. The Thanksgiving dinner with the palm
Oh,
and the potatoes, homemade bread, everything was delectable. I did, I'll admit, slightly overcook the turkey, which was fine on the day of and even the day after. But as I sit here on Thursday, the leftovers get a little bit more daunting when you don't nail that temperature on the turkey
okay.
on the first go around. But no less delicious. Like I said, I spatchcocked the whole thing. Everything was out 30 minutes prior to the Super Bowl, which left plenty of time for letting all the food get to a consumable temperature, get the table set up, a little folding table in front of the TV, get a nice Pinot Noir going. Yeah, that's pairing like a fine dining big experience along with the Super Bowl. Very underrated move. Typically, I'm doing something like pizza, calamari, chips, maybe barbecue. Like
Calamari's kind of
that's the way I've
fancy.
gone in times past. But going for the Thanksgiving dinner is absolutely a repeatable thing. For anybody else who wants to pursue that in the future, get turkeys. They're always, not always, but most of the time they're frozen at the grocery store. Buy it around the holidays, stash it away in the back of the freezer. First off, they're on sale, so you get a
There
cheaper
you
price
go.
per
There
pound
you go.
on that turkey. But because it's already frozen, it's already packed that way and meant to be done that way. Storing it in the freezer for an extra couple of months, completely fine. Take it out about a week before the big game. I did 5 days. I think I would have liked to have a sixth day of it defrosting. And then, of course, spatchcocking is where you take out the bun, you lay it flat, nice even cook on all the meat, and you clean a lot more of the carcass as well. So I'm giving you all sorts of valuable tips out here. Mark these down, save it for Thanksgiving at the very least. If you have the means and the desire, Super Bowl next year as well. I think I'd be making that a repeat performance.
All right. So Tom Castleman has Thanksgiving dinner for the Super Bowl.
It's fantastic.
My girlfriend heard that and laughed. So I have like mixed reactions to your plan. So I'm one of those people that really likes the Thanksgiving sides, but it's not that I don't like turkey. I mean, I like everything, Tom. I'm not hard to please. But
Mhm.
if I was ranking meats, turkey would be pretty low on mine. So I would not want turkey as my main meat. Like I'd rather have, steak, chicken,
Sure,
even ham, pulled pork, which is what I had at the Super Bowl party I was
that's a
at.
classic.
So I like the idea since it's not Thanksgiving. I would amend it to make the Thanksgiving sides, but cook something instead of turkey. That would be my
Mm,
my
I'm
suggestion. But
I'm t I'm too
obviously,
big of a turkey fan
yeah,
for
you're a
that. Like,
turkey
I don't eat
fan.
it all the time, but
Okay,
I think just Thanksgiving and maybe Christmas is not often enough. Throw in a Super
sure.
Bowl turkey, space it out,
Okay,
you know, it's not a great summertime food, but that'll help get you through, some cold days. It's a nice hearty bird.
yeah. As far as my stuff, so the Super Bowl party, I think the guy normally had cooks more fancy dishes. He went with the more simple spread. It was pulled pork, hot dogs, chips. There
Mhm.
was I don't even think I even had the chili to be honest, because I think I ate so much from I was meaning to save for the chili, but then I was like, I already made such a mess on my jersey already. So I ended up opting for the chips. And then I even like canceled the dip the last two times around because I was like, I've already made enough of a mess. I was those like Lay's potato chips that I just like by themselves. But
Sure.
the pulled pork was delicious. There was some good desserts there. Overall, food was good. I was happy. The one that really won me over, baked potato. The man had baked potatoes, and I am a baked potato
Like
connoisseur.
as skins or like a
No, a
full
full baked potato. It was so good. And
that
I
feels
think the
incongruent with everything else that has been laid
one
out.
one of the best combinations in the history of the world, Tom. The best combination. Baked potato and sour cream. That is heaven. I picture myself going to heaven one day and they give you a baked potato with sour cream. That's what I picture, man. It
I
was
like
that.
neither of those things.
Of course you don't. That's what really won me over as far as the overall Super Bowl experience. Um, so we had a bingo card, all the things that my girlfriend's mom would say, and all the things I would say. They had a bingo card for me, and we had a bingo card for her. And apparently, I didn't say enough things that I was supposed to say. And I think it's because I
Mm,
was too nervous. Because I get nervous in the big games. I know. I sit here and I talk about how I feel great. KC's going to win this. Blah blah blah. But when you sit down as a fan, you get nervous. If it's a close game, if you're behind, even with Mahomes, you don't really have time to say the things you'll normally say.
yeah.
Because the Ravens game was not nerve wracking. They felt like they had it the whole time. The Dolphin game was not nerve wracking. The Bills game was nerve wracking, but this one was just a little bit of extra nerve wracking. But one of the negatives was it just drives me nuts. I get they're not sports fans, but my goodness, I was just rolling over, man. There was again a lot, mainly females at this party. Like the males that were there were significant others,
Sure.
but there was more females than males at the party, and there was a couple of ladies that left as overtime was starting. And I
Mhm.
get they're not there to watch the Super Bowl, but I'm just like, oh my God, there's overtime in the Super Bowl and you're leaving? Oh, I know I work a night schedule, Tom. I don't have a typical schedule. I
Sure.
don't work a 9 to 5, but it was like 9 o'clock, 9:30. It wasn't
Yeah,
like
it wasn't
it
especially
wasn't. I mean,
late, no.
that's why they started at 5:30, man, which is smart on the NFL's part, by the way.
Mhm. Yeah.
This, by the way, Tom, the most watched Super Bowl of all time, by the way, for those counting at home, something we didn't
Mhm.
mention. So I was just a little bit upset that happened. I get it; they're not sports fans, but overtime of a Super Bowl and you're
Did w
leaving
At any
early.
point in time, did they break out a game of bananagrams?
No, no bananagrams,
Okay.
thankfully.
Alright, so you at least didn't
Yeah,
have to endure that
yeah, it
as
was.
I have
Yeah,
on
so
an
that
occasion.
was that was a tough part. There was a cute dog there though, which I always like.
Alright. Points,
So had
points
some
for that.
dogs. So overall decent experience, but I was shaking my head at the overtime departures
Mhm. I can
during a
imagine.
Super Bowl. Ugh.
But we now depart from the NFL and
Say it isn't
probably
so.
probably will be departing from this as a main topic line for a little bit as we've got about a month, 5, 6 weeks, something like that before the league year technically ends. And then free agency will begin. We will have the combine, I believe, in a couple of weeks, followed by pro. So there's going to be a lot more. The NFL season has both ended
NFL
and is
draft.
also just beginning in a little bit because the NFL very strategically, very intelligently makes sure that they are touching all 12 months on the calendar if they can help it. So We will go to the NBA. I mean, we've been focusing a lot on the NFL over the past few months, and I mean, football's king in this country. I mean, whether it's college football or the NFL, that is the biggest sport. Those are the
Undisputed.
tentpole events that around which we gather. But we've got the NBA All Star Game coming up, and looking at the standings, things are a little bit topsy turvy. I don't know if I have written down what we were calling out preseason with things going on, but I don't think either of us had the Timberwolves, the Thunder at the top of the Western Conference. I don't think we had the Warriors battling for the play-in tournament. They're playing tournament lives currently. I mean, there's
The
still
Lakers too.
a good amount of season left. Yeah, the Lakers as well, struggling a little bit, but NBA All-Star Weekend coming up, and of course, this plays a role in how much guys get paid. I mean, it gets, as part of the cachet that they have built up around the league about, hey, is a guy an all-star? Is he not an all-star? That sort of thing, which is why, looking at some of the guys that didn't make it almost calls for like an expansion of the all-star game or something along those lines, because I know, Kamen, you mentioned De'Aaron Fox before we started the show. As being a snub. His teammate Domantas Sabonis has been having a really, really good season as well. And just like kind of going down the list here, I mean, James Harden, who is, I know not in his prime, he's not a prime superstar, but he's still, I would say, a superstar name around the league. He is not in either. Jamal Murray, what does he have to do? He's won a championship, absolutely goes nuclear in the playoffs, and has had a really good regular season as well. So those are like a couple of the snubs around the All-Star Weekend. I don't know if there's any that kind of jump out especially to you. This just kind of, to me, says like there's just so much good talent in the NBA right now that it's really difficult to actually make an All-Star team, as odd as that may sound.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this up real quickly. I don't see if Trae Young ended up getting it or not, because they're talking about him.
Yes, as an alternate. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was another guy that I had. I think he got in as an alternate, but he was up there for points and assists in the NBA. So good on him to get in that way. De'Aaron Fox is the biggest snub, I think, for me, no question. 26.4 points per game. That is 12th highest score in the NBA, which, again, a lot of times when it comes to the All-Star game, they really want to reward the teams that are doing really, really good. For example, the Minnesota Timberwolves got rewarded with 2 All-Stars. Minnesota, one of the biggest surprises in the NBA. They've got the #1 seed in the Western Conference, 1 game ahead of OKC, 1.5 ahead of the Clippers, and 2.5 ahead of the Nuggets. So obviously, I agree with you, Tom. There's so many great players. We probably should expand the All-Star team. And then if we did expand the All-Star team, we can let all these guys in. But one of the things I look at, I know they do it by position sometimes too, but sometimes they don't. De'Aaron Fox, 26.4 points per game. We had Karl Anthony Towns, considerably less points than him, about 4 points less. Cat got in because T-Wolves are great. They felt the need to give them 2 All-Stars along with Anthony Edwards. I felt that Towns not as good as some of the other guys that could have been in instead. You look at Fox's numbers across the board, Tom, more points and assists than Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, more points and assists than Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Better numbers, not much better, which is where like the name brand gets you. I think LeBron, for example, is a better player than De'Aaron Fox. That's obvious. He shares some of the duties with Anthony Davis, but there's literally about 5 or 6 guys that got in over De'Aaron Fox in the Western Conference that have lesser stats than him. So you can argue that, okay, maybe, LeBron is in over him. Maybe Kawhi's in over him because they split some more duties with other guys. But I'd be hard-pressed to say that there's like 6 guys you have better stats than that got in over you. That rubs me the wrong way. He's even got more points than Anthony Edwards, by the way. So I would have dumped, personally, Karl Anthony Towns for De'Aaron Fox. But other than Fox, nothing terribly egregious. And I think it's the same thing I always talk about this in the NBA. The NBA is loaded with talent, and the gap between the 6th best player and the 11th best player is very small, just like the gap between the 20th or 22nd best player and the 29th player is very, very small. I mean, almost all of these teams in the NBA, I say almost, not all, but the vast majority of them, especially the playoff teams, essentially have two superstars on their teams.
Hmm.
That's how loaded the league is right now. So I definitely think that overall, most of it was right. I'd probably expand the All-Star game a little bit. Maybe I think they have 12 players. Why not go to 15 and we can have three separate lines like hockey? A line of
Sure.
five comes in, line of five comes in, line of five comes in the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think that could be a solution, definitely. I mean, I think this is also kind of a byproduct of just the NBA writ large, as far as how it's transitioned to being more and more and more offenses. It used to be Steph Curry is an anomaly. Like if we think about all the all-time great shooters, like Reggie Miller was kind of, one of very few guys who was a good three-point shooter. Even Ray Allen, I know more three-point shooting was being done, but now, I mean, now you've got guys like Karl Anthony Towns shooting and hitting a lot of three-pointers. You've got guys all up and down lineups that are doing that. So I think we're also seeing that
And the
with
pace is up.
the pace is up, the
This
shot profiles are up. It's kind of the gamification of basketball, kind of similar to baseball, and how three true outcomes has really been like the
analytics.
thing that they go for. Because yeah, that's the sort of thing that mathematically wins games, and the personnel, the talent is really meshing with that really really well. Gone are the days where you got like three centers and two of them are there to just take 6 or 5 fouls or whatever it is. But that's the
But the T-Wolves play with two centers, which is one of the most interesting things. I know we always
yeah,
talk about, can you not play with two centers? The Bulls game last night, Bulls were playing with two centers at one point.
yeah, and it's a
So
rarity. Yeah,
we'll move on to the All-Star picks real quick, but I just want to
sure.
acknowledge a couple teams real quick. Some of the sort of surprises of the first half. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, the 2 seed in the East, Donovan Mitchell's playing really, really high, basketball. A lot of good players out there in Cleveland. First time they've been relevant since LeBron James. We got the Timberwolves, very, very good young team. Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns. They've got the 1 seed in the West. I still think the Nuggets are the team to beat for me. I still like the Nuggets, Nuggets and Bucks, although the Bucks are worrying me a little bit. We'll see what happens with Doc. I still feel like
Oh, I'm out on them.
it's gonna be Boston, Milwaukee in the East for me. I'll have
Yeah.
to revisit. I want to see more sample size. I want to revisit this before the
Hmm.
playoffs happen. I still think out west, though, I do trust the Nuggets the most. I mean, the Clippers are a big story, though. Kawhi, Harden, we have obviously Paul George playing a high level. Can they stay healthy? Can they put it together in the
Hmm.
playoffs? We'll see. OKC, Minnesota, two young teams. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously really good. Chet Holmgren, really good.
Yeah.
Some awesome stories, which again, we talk about the parity of sports. I think we see it across the board. We
Hmm.
see it in the NFL. I know Kansas City's won two straight, but it hasn't been easy. NBA also is, very, very evenly matched, no doubt at the current moment. So I guess we can
Hmm.
get into just a quick look at the All-Star game. Before that, though, the midseason NBA MVP, kind of our last sort of
Yeah.
discussion-based topic. Who's your midseason NBA MVP? Because I've got a surprise for you, Tom.
I'm gonna go with. I mean, I looked up the odds for this betting wise. Nikola Jokic once again is at the
Your
top of the
favorite.
ranks, and it's no surprise given that he leads his team in points, rebounds, and assists per game while playing, I believe, in all except one game. But I'm going to go with Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Maybe this should be more of like an up and coming type of award. This is kind of he's
Up
bursting onto the scene because
MVP.
he's always been
Get the
good.
up and coming award, the MVP.
Well, I like this. That's part of the reason why I'm picking him as the first half MVP, because just everything about the Oklahoma City Thunder is, they're upstart and now they're at the top of the league, and he's a big, big reason why. Right now, he's the third favorite. Joel Embiid is second favorite. I think that's going to go
Oh, he's
down though because
out.
he's not going to play enough games.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, looking at where the Thunder are and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander just kind of like taking that next step in his development, where I mean, it's facile to say, oh, he's a stat aggregator on a bad team in years past, but now we're seeing him put up the really big numbers. I mean, he's second in the
31
league in
points a game.
scoring. and he's doing that with the team winning, with plenty of help and weapons around him now that Chet Holmgren, namely, is healthy and everything on the season. So um, you look at a I guess point guard is what he's playing for them. He's getting 31 points, 5.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists. He's putting up phenomenal numbers. So I mean, you'd say, yeah, Jokic is more rebounds and more assists, slightly lower on the scoring, but for me, I would say Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. Part of that's a little bit of that narrative. Don't want to give the same award to the guy too many times. But like Jokic and Gilgeous-Alexander are like 1-2 for me right there.
Yeah, I think I would say Gilgeous Alexander's having a great season. He might be my third or fourth MVP, but I think
Mm,
there's really two guys that really stand out to me this season. Honorable mentions to Shea Gilgeous Alexander, Giannis as well, always putting up big numbers. But I'm going to go a little bit different than you as well,
mm,
because I feel like, whenever we see the same guy win it a lot, tie goes to the new guy. And
true.
I don't really believe in this award. I hate how the award has become the guy with the best player on the team with the best record in the conference or the second best conference. Like, we have to give the MVP to I mean, it makes no sense. I know we've had exceptions, Jokic, Westbrook one year, but usually it feels like across sports, we give the MVP to the guy, the best player on the team having the best season, which is, again,
Hmm.
ridiculous. Lamar Jackson won it. I'm still furious over that. The guy did not deserve the MVP. His defense was amazing. Whenever the game gets clutch, whenever it needs a big pass play, he never makes it. But I'm going to go to Luka Doncic. I think Luka Doncic has had the best individual season, which is what the MVP is. It's not the best player on the best team, it's the most valuable player. And the Dallas Mavericks missed the playoffs last season, didn't even play in the play-in tournament. Kyrie Irving has missed a bunch of games.
Hmm.
There's really not really a second co-star on Dallas. So, I mean, yeah, they're not the one seed, but where would they be without Luka Doncic? They would be nowhere. They're currently, Tom, 32-23, the 7 seed. They're one game back from being tied for the 5th seed, the Dallas Mavericks. I'll give you some numbers. So Embiid currently, technically, Embiid is the leading scorer. Doncic is second. Gilgeous Alexander's third. Embiid's going to miss the rest of the regular season, so he's going to get off the qualified games for points. So I'm going to remove Embiid from this. Luka now becomes the highest scoring player in the NBA, and he's also third in assists. He's doing it at both levels. And here's one for you, Tom. Luka Doncic averages only about 3.5 less rebounds than Nikola Jokic. He's got 8.8 rebounds per game, Luka. One of my favorite stats. You like this stat, Tom?
Hmm.
Points, rebounds, and assists. PRA. He's got, I'm not saying by far, but a pretty far margin. 52.72 points, assists, and rebounds. Second closest is Giannis at 48.36. Jokic is third closest at 47.4. Luka Doncic has increased his three-point shooting ability. He's at about 37.5 from the field this year, 49% from the field goals overall, 77% from the free throw line. His efficiency numbers are up. He's not scoring, 34, 35 points a game, on 40 shots. The guy is shooting almost 50% from the field, almost 40% from threes, pretty close to 80% from the line. He is, in many cases, the whole Mavericks offense.
Mm.
Everything runs through him. I know he's getting 9 assists a game, but it feels like many times 12, 13, because it's the hockey assist, the pass to the pass. He does exactly what Jokic does on the court, but he's used a little bit more because his teammate isn't quite as good. But Luka Doncic, I think, is my midseason MVP. He has been spectacular for Dallas. I'll go, Jokic a close second. A lot of other good guys, but Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, I would say a pretty distant third. For
Mm.
me, in my personal rankings, it's really a two-man race right now between Luka and Jokic. We'll see what happens the second half, but for now, midseason MVP, Luka Doncic.
Well, I don't know how often you play futures or anything like that, but depending on where you look, are you a FanDuel guy? Because you can get him plus 1,300 to be MVP for you this year if
I'm
you're
a
at FanDuel.
DraftKings guy, but I'm sure it's similar.
DraftKings plus 1,100. So if you want to play some futures, I know typically you go for in-game stuff and parlays and whatnot, but you could put down
I
a
hate
little something something.
futures. I don't have enough patience for futures, Tom. I'm that guy that just cannot
They're good
stand futures.
investments.
I only did futures on the World Cup, which did work out pretty well, actually.
There you go. Put one
But
down on Luca.
yeah,
Go for the fact that there's probably going to be a little bit of voter fatigue on Nikola Jokic as well. As far as that goes, really, really briefly, we'll just touch on a couple of novelty events around the NBA All-Star games. We've got the dunk contest, 3-point contest, and of course a special event between Steph Curry and Sabrina Ionescu. So for dunk contest, Max McClung, he is the guy that is currently listed as the favorite. He of course won it last year, but I'm going to say they go ahead and I'm going to go a little bit political on this one, a little bit tinfoil hat, and say Jaylen Brown is going to win it. He is the second longest odds at plus 425 to win the dunk contest. And the whole reason why I'm going to say Jaylen Brown is, well, one, he's really athletic, he's really talented. But if the NBA wants to have more big names, you might want to reward them with winning a contest every now and again. I think he'll at least get to the final round, but I'll pick him to win it outright. And then for the 3-point contest, I mean, Karl Anthony Towns won it last year, and yeah, he's the fourth favorite to win.
I think didn't Dame win it last year? I think
Did Dame win it last year?
I think Towns won it 2 years before.
2 years ago. Oh, I've got that mixed up then. Yeah, Dame Lillard, he's the favorite. I mean, he's my guy. I mean, even though things aren't going super well for the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going to go ahead and go with Dame Lillard on this one, stick with the favorite. Again, really wish that they were, doing better, but I think I'm pretty solidly, I was on the fence and I let myself get pulled into picking the Bucks to make the finals over the Celtics. I'm firmly
just wait, Tom. The season's not over yet, Tom.
No, it's not over, but
just wait.
Certainly have not looked great for the Bucks. The Celtics have looked really, really good.
Yeah, the Celtics always look good, but they never deliver a championship. I'll tell you that much. The current team, obviously.
Okay, then.
Not the all-time team. The all-time team has delivered plenty of championships. Yeah, I want to look this up maybe after the show. It'd be an interesting trivia question. The last time an NBA All-Star was in the dunk contest, because Jaylen Brown is for the first time in a while, I can think of a guy that's actually a really good NBA player that's actually in the dunk contest. From what I've seen for Jaylen Brown, though, he seems to be more of a power dunker. I haven't really seen him do anything creative. Maybe he's got it in his arsenal, but I'm going to go McClung, a guy that I have seen do some creative dunks with the repeat on that one. I'll go Dame Time repeat in the 3-point contest. I think he's an awesome streaky shooter. I do think the Bucks will figure it out because look, it's a new team, new players, and now they go through a new coach. Not surprising that Doc Rivers' start is not great. Let's wait and see how they look in March and April before I bury the Milwaukee Bucks just yet, Tom Casselman.
I was just barely sitting on the lip of the back of the wagon as far as making that pick. Look, I got bumped off.
I'll tell you right now, if they played the NBA playoffs right now, Celtics and Bucks today in a 7-game series, I picked the Celtics. Something tells me Milwaukee's going to figure it out. Something tells me when it's going to be the Eastern Conference Finals, I'll probably be picking the Bucks. But we'll see. We'll see. I need more sample size. I just be careful. They got Giannis and Curry, or Giannis and Dame Lillard, rather. I would not count the Bucks out just yet. So Lillard's my 3-point champ. As far as Curry and Ionescu, Sabrina Ionescu is a great shooter, arguably the best woman shooter. That's a pro. The best woman shooter is actually Caitlin Clark. She's probably the best women's basketball player in the world, and she's not a pro yet. When she gets there, she's going to light up the WNBA, the most exciting basketball player in women's basketball history. But as far as the professionals, Ionescu is probably the best shooter. She put on a show at the WNBA 3-point contest. I think it was last year, just went nuts. So it's hard to say, but I'll tell you this. I'm not going to bet against Steph Curry. He's won multiple 3-point contests. I just saw him make a 94-foot shot from the
Hmm.
tunnel in
Yeah.
yesterday's game. He, by the way, has had 4 straight games of 7+ threes made. It's Steph Curry in a shooting contest, and it's 1 against 1. It's not 8 people. It could be any male, could be any female, anybody in the world, doesn't matter. I'm picking Steph Curry. Simple
Yeah.
as that.
Yep, I'm right there with you on that one. And with that, that wraps up the various topics we have. We now move into our weekly staples, like you said at the top of the show. Common betting locks of the week. We were fantastic. We shared the Chiefs +2, and of course, with them winning the game outright, that was a hit. We each had a Mahomes prop. You had MVP at +125, which hit. I had him getting over 4.5 rush attempts. No sweat whatsoever on that one. The Kelsey, lock on your part fell short. 15.5 yards in the first quarter. Kelsey was
I
bottled
should
up
have
just
done the
1 catch,
fourth
1 yard.
quarter. Should have done it the
That
fourth
that
quarter, the
that
one
would
I
have been
missed.
crunch time right there. That would have been really huge. But and then I also had a little bit of a sweat on this one when it went to overtime. Thankfully, they didn't kick the PAT. It was just a sudden death over on that one, because that would have been the difference.
Oh,
25-22, just
47.
under. That's where actually I think the line closed, was right at 47. I slide just under Indiana Jones grabbing the fedora before the wall or the door, whatever,
Ooh,
slams shut. So
nice.
3-0 week for me, 2-1 week for you, and now we get into some unfamiliar territory. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier to pick NFL locks of the week, as there's a nice ritual, habit to the NFL season. But I am now going to be dipping my toes into the NBA, and I figured there's 3 games on tonight, so why not just get a little something out of each and every one of those games? So, Common, I'm going to start off. Minnesota Timberwolves, the number 1 seed in the West currently. The Trailblazers are in the bottom 3, I believe, of the conference.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pretty decent line, but you know me, I'm always worried about backdoor covers and crunch time or garbage time covers. So I'm going to go with the Minnesota Timberwolves -5 in the first half.
Okay.
So that's one Casselman staple. The halftime line. I'm going to go with a player prop. Brooke Lopez over 5.5 rebounds. The Grizzlies are the 24th ranked team in rebounding. Brooke Lopez averages right on the nose, 5.5 rebounds per game. So if we're going to flip a coin over what he's been averaging going up against a not great rebounding team, I'll take his over on that player prop. And then I know you're going to love this. The Jazz and the Warriors playing tonight, 240 points. I did a very non-serious math calculation where I added up the average points for both teams, the average points against for both teams, divided that by 2. The under is at 240, and my very, very, very rudimentary calculations came out to about 237.5. So give me Jazz Warriors under 240 as the total tonight.
All right, let's say that's NBA. I think we've been doing so good picking NFL. Again, you're 30-18 on the season, the best in the world at betting locks. There's no expert out there better than Tom Casselman. I'm a more modest 25, 22-1. But I've been making a lot of money betting on the Chiefs in the
There you go.
playoffs. My DraftKings account has never seen more money in it. We're talking maybe a little over 1,000. I was gonna say thousands of dollars,
Be
but a little
careful,
more than
IRS. It's tax
1,000.
season, my guy. You got to be
Oh,
careful.
be careful. That's for last year. It's gonna change. I'll
Yeah.
probably dip in the end just under 600 to avoid the taxes. That'll be the goal.
Hey, and that's what you ought to do, is you ought to invest in futures at the end of the year, just like you can do for tax benefits of putting money into a
Oh,
401k, a Roth
true.
IRA. You
True.
kind of do a little bit of that so
Okay.
you're not paying the taxes. Do
No,
some futures toward the end of the year, Common. At the
that's
end
not
of
a bad idea. So anyway, 30-18 for Tom Casselman. That is an incredible season record. I am 25, 22-1, pretty good as well. But this is going to be interesting because the NFL has been really, really kind to us.
Mhm.
NBA, it's been a hot minute since we played some NBA locks. I've got 3 for the games tonight as well. I'm going to go Warriors -1.5 at the Jazz. Warriors just won 129-107 at the Jazz just 3 days ago on the road, 22-point win. I think 2 is going to be just fine here. Golden State, by the way, won 5 of the last 6 games. Their only loss coming to the Clippers, who are absolutely on fire as well. Golden State's playing much better basketball. Draymond Green is back. That has helped them. And of course, a certain guy, Stephen Curry, always helps. Curry has hit 7 or more threes in an NBA record 4 straight games. First guy ever to do that. A Warrior should win by 2 or more. No problem. You're worried about, backdoor covers. I'm not, Tom. Give me the T-Wolves minus 9.5 over the Blazers. T-Wolves are a much, much better team. They actually just won by 12 at the Blazers 2 days ago. Also beat them by 23 earlier this year. T-Wolves just beat the Bucks by 24 and the Clippers by 21. Minnesota's been rolling. They'll win by 10 or more. Kind of an exclamation point to the last game before the NBA All-Star break. T-Wolves winning big. And then lastly, give me the Grizzlies plus 11.5 against the Bucks. Milwaukee has been really, really bad on the road with Doc Rivers since he took over. They lost to the Jazz by 15, lost to the Suns by 8. They're the better team here. They should win. But backdoor covers here, Tom, 11.5. That's a lot of points for a team that has not been good on the road. So I think the Grizzlies cover, but the Bucks do get the win outright tonight.
All right, sounds good. We were moving into trivia right now. And Kamen, I did make sure to put down a note. What was the great trivia that you had last week?
Yes. All right, I'll get started with that. So I figured this was going to be true. It's what Mahomes was trying to do. So he officially did it, so I can officially ask this question. So Mahomes is the 7th guy ever with 3 titles and 2 MVPs in the first 7 seasons of a career in the 4 major sports in America. Who are the other 6 guys? This is NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL. 6 other guys in their first 7 seasons have had 3 titles and 2 MVPs. That much or more, obviously. Can you name the other 6 guys?
Okay, so for hockey, this is going to be a tough one because I don't follow a lot of hockey, but I do know Wayne Gretzky. Did he win enough early on?
I'm just going to give you the hockey one right now, and I think I'm butchering this name because I think he's French-Canadian. I got to look this up. I have it written down in my notes. Look up pronunciation. It's Guy Lafleur, but I think I'm butchering that first name. But Guy Lafleur, former Canadian player.
Okay.
He's the hockey one, the one
I
we're
would not
not
have
going to
gotten
get.
that.
Now, so there's 5 others. I'll go ahead and just tell you there's 2 basketball and 3 baseball. So Mahomes is the first football guy. The basketball and baseball ones you might be able to get. I'll go ahead and just give you one clue to start. All of these are legends. None of these guys you would have seen growing up. I guess maybe one you might have seen as a little bebe, but not really. So you didn't grow up watching any one of these guys. So none of them are recent. The baseball ones are very old school, especially.
Okay. All right. So within the first 7 seasons, 3 championships, 2 MVPs. All right.
You want to start basketball or baseball first? Because there's 2 basketball, 3 baseball. That might be easier.
I'm gonna. Okay. So for basketball, I'm gonna go with Magic Johnson. Is he one?
Not Magic Johnson. No.
Because I know he was on like that really good Lakers team just starting out. Okay, so not Magic.
You are warm though.
Yeah, I'd say like Bill Russell. He won so many championships.
Bill Russell was one of them. And you're very warm. I think the basketball one you're gonna get. You're very warm with your 2 guesses.
Yeah, because it would be Larry Bird, would it?
Larry Bird?
Really? Oh, I didn't realize.
Yeah.
That he'd won that many titles.
He won 3 straight MVPs and had to get 3 titles in the first 7 years.
All right, so it's Russell, Bird, and then there's one more basketball player.
No, that's it. That's the basketball.
Okay, gotcha. So now it's 3 baseball.
3 baseball.
So, like, I mean, I'm going to go like the Yankees. They won a lot. So, like, Joe DiMaggio.
Joe DiMaggio is one of them.
Would Mickey Mantle be on that list?
Mickey Mantle, the 2nd greatest Yankee of all time, is number 2.
Second only to Derek Jeter.
Babe Ruth? Babe Ruth?
Derek Jeter actually one of like the worst Hall of Famers in the Hall of Fame if you go by like WAR and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's
Um,
true.
and then let's see, one other. Let's see, not would maybe Willie Mays to the Giants. I don't think the Giants won that
Not Willie
much though.
Mays. It's not a Yankee. I can eliminate
Not
that
not
for you.
hammering. It's not Henry Aaron, is it?
Nope, not Henry Aaron.
Okay, so it's not a pitcher because pitchers don't often win MVP. So
It's a
all time
hitter.
great hitter. Stan Musial, maybe
Stan
Cardinals.
Musial. Good job,
Stan the
Tom
man. There we
Casselman.
go.
Wow. Very nicely done. I'm going to give you one
Hey,
more
you don't
trivia
go to
question.
Mizzou. You don't go to Mizzou without learning about folks talking about Stan the man. Let me tell you.
Right? I got a second one for you, a little bonus
Go
banger.
for
There's
it.
actually, believe it or not, I found like 5 or 6 really good trivia questions this week. So I had to cut myself off at 2.
Okay.
And I'm keeping them NFL themed because there's some really good basketball trivia from this week as well. So Mahomes is the fastest ever to win 3 championships, 3 championship MVPs in USA main sports during the first 7 seasons. So like Super Bowl MVP,
Mhm.
Finals MVP, Stanley Cup MVP, Baseball World Series MVP. Can you name the other 8 guys that got to those 3 championship MVPs in the main sports?
Mm.
And there's 2 guys that were second and
Over.
third. So this is guys that have won 3 championship MVPs in the
Gotcha.
World Series, NHL, NBA, and NFL.
How much of the previous list carries over as far as Bill Russell, Mickey Mantle, Joe DiMaggio, Larry Bird?
Surprisingly, none of them.
Wow. Does
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky hold for NHL? Again, that's the only big
No.
name. Like this Mario Lemieux, I think.
There's only one NHL name, and he's a goaltender. And he did it over 17 seasons.
I don't know my hockey goaltenders all that well.
He's a former Avalanche guy. I think he was a Canadian as well.
That does nothing for me.
Patrick Waugh, I'll give you that one.
Okay, yeah, that I never would have gotten that.
Okay, there's 2 football ones that are
3
pretty
championship
obvious.
MVPs. See, like, I mean, Brady won a bunch, so is Tom Brady one of them?
Tom Brady's one of them.
And then,
It took him 15 seasons to get that, though. Only the 8th fastest ever.
3 Super Bowl MVPs. It wouldn't be Joe Montana.
Joe Montana.
Oh, is it? Okay. Because I know,
Yeah,
like with Jerry Rice, I figured Rice may have taken a couple of those.
3 out of 4 years, Montana got MVP.
Gotcha. Okay, I figured
So-
Rice would have gotten a couple more. So let's see. So that's football.
And the rest are
let's-
all basketball.
all basketball. So that's like LeBron James,
LeBron James,
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan. LeBron, 13 seasons to get that.
Mhm.
Michael Jordan, 9 seasons. And there is 3 others, and you might have
3
guessed one of them
others.
recently.
Is Tim Duncan on that list?
Tim Duncan did it in 8 seasons. He was tied for the
Mhm.
second fastest. And you're
Shaquille
missing
O'Neal.
Shaq in 10 seasons. And
And
then
so
you're
now I'm
missing
just
only
missing the
one.
fastest.
The fastest other than Mahomes. And you kind of guessed him earlier. I think he did. He might have done the MVP in his 8th season, that I'm guessing. Because the other question was 7 seasons. This is he did it in his 8th season. Got the 3rd championship MVP. You guessed this guy earlier.
Oh, Magic.
Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the list.
Wow.
So
That
a little
is some
pantheon
rarefied air.
of all-time greats, and Mahomes is ahead of all of them. Talking about best North American athletes, he is on pace over everybody for that part of the accolade, at least.
Yeah. So for my trivia question, Kamen, I'm not sure how much you play, baseball video games, but I know PS2 has been your game system. That's probably
Yes.
mine doesn't work anymore, but it still is near and dear to my heart as having some of the great games. So you may have
We are
played.
old school.
You may have played in your time MLB The Show. MLB The Show 05, David Ortiz on the front, one of my favorites. So this trivia question should be right up your alley. That's going to be like my big hint for this, as all of these players were available to play in MLB The Show 05 and games around that era. There have been 10 pitchers. It's opening. It's not opening. It's catchers, pitchers reporting for spring training. So just want to touch on some baseball with this trivia that I found. There have been 10 pitchers who have earned their 200th career win since the year 2000. Can you name the 10 pitchers that have won their 200th game since the year 2000? Most of them have done it all in this century. I believe a couple started playing in the 90s. So that's another hint right there.
All right, so Greg Maddux.
Greg Maddux, no, he got his 200th win in the 90s. He's not on this list.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to go Pedro Martinez.
Pedro is not on this list. I don't think he got to 200 wins.
Okay, so that's a great. Randy Johnson.
No.
I think he got to 300 in this era.
It might have been. It might have been that he got to 200 in like the 20 or no. Why isn't he on there?
Because he might have got his 200th win in like 99 or something and got his 300th in the early 2000s, maybe. Or is your trivia question flawed?
It might be flawed.
Well, how about, is Tom Glavine on there?
Glavine's not on there. Yeah. Okay. So that bothers me that that's not right. Okay. So we're gonna can this one because I'm not sure what went on with that one. I got this off of Sporkle. So
how about, can I just list guys? Clayton Kershaw, is he on there?
Kershaw's on the list, yeah.
Okay. 200. So that's just weird because I feel like those guys, but I don't know if they got their 200th in 99. So no Randy Johnson, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, Roger Clemens, Pedro Martinez, none of those guys on there.
Correct, yeah.
So Kershaw got his 200th more recently. There's not that many guys that get to 200 wins anymore.
Yeah.
Forget 300, 200. Who am I thinking of? Did Bartolo Colon get to 200 wins?
Bartolo Colon is on the list, yeah.
Okay, I just want to list these off. I know the trivia question might be flawed, but I want to get these guys because this is guys that would have got their 200th. So Bartolo Colon, how many more do I need?
You got Bartolo Colon and Clayton Kershaw. I think that's it so far.
But how many total is it? Sorry.
10.
10, okay. I don't know if he's got there yet, but I'll guess him anyway. Max Scherzer.
Scherzer's on there.
Okay. Justin Verlander.
Verlander.
4. Oh. I don't think he got to 200, but I'm going to guess him anyway. Madison Bumgarner.
Not Bumgarner, no.
I don't think he got to 200.
We've got
Tim
1,
Lincecum?
2. Not Lincecum. We've got 3 lefties and 3 righties.
3 lefties and 3 righties. Here's one for you. I don't know if he got there, but I'll guess for you, Mark Burley.
Mark Burley is on the list. Yes, sir.
All right, Mark Burley. The first left-handed pitcher I thought of, Tom Casselman. So I was like, let's try it. Kurt Schilling.
Kurt Schilling not on the list.
Okay, so I need 2 more lefties and 3 more righties. Other lefty pitchers.
Let's see.
Did
one
Rich
of them
Hill get there? Because he's just
Rich Hill did not. One of them is a famous subject of debate from our old Salute Your Sports show for the Cy Young Award. CC Sabathia is on the list.
So there's one more lefty then.
Yeah, you would have rooted for him very, very hard at one point in your sports fandom.
I don't know why. I know it's not him, but I'm just going to guess him because he's a lefty. I think of Cliff Lee.
Not Cliff Lee. He's helped break 2 curses.
Oh, John Lester.
John Lester, indeed. And of course, one of his rivals.
Roy Halladay, when I'm thinking of Cliff Lee. The late great
no, not
Roy Halladay. Not Roy
Halladay, no.
So three righties I need, right?
Yep, 3 righties. Let's see. 2 of them played in the state of Missouri.
Oh, Chris Carpenter and Adam Wainwright.
Adam Wainwright, yes, but not Carpenter. Other team in the state.
Oh, the Royals?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. Oh, yeah, Zach Greinke.
Zach Greinke's on the list, and then this guy, Arguably the toughest to get. Moneyball is my clue for you,
So he's an A's pitcher.
among other teams. Yeah.
Who was that other guy with Barry Zito? I know Barry Zito's a lefty. Was it one of those two other guys?
Yep.
Oh God, why am I blanking right now?
As soon as I say it, you're going to be like, "Oh, of course."
No, give me like a minute here. If I don't get it in a minute,
Sure.
I'll think of it. There was three pitchers for the A's that were really good, and Barry Zito was one of them. And that's the first guy I think of with the curveball. He's a lefty though. I'm thinking of a righty here. What are his initials?
TH.
T. Why am I? I'm having one of those dumb moments. Obviously, it's not Trevor Hoffman. He was a closer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm blanking. You can just give it to me.
Tim Hudson.
Tim
That's
Hudson,
the
yeah,
other
number
one. Yeah.
15, number 15. He was a
Yeah.
Giant as well. Yeah, that was a
Mm-hmm.
dumb moment.
Also
Okay.
Atlanta Braves. Yeah, not sure what went on with that question because like I just did the math on the question. And I think Randy Johnson had won his 200th game in the year 2000. Although maybe with the way that I'm doing the math, it was at
Maybe
193, so maybe been just shy of that.
maybe it's guys that started playing in the 2000s. I
Maybe
don't
something
know.
like that. I don't know. That was I got like I said, I got off Sporkle. I thought it was interesting, but yeah, definitely perhaps some flaws in that one. So we'll move on to salute statements of the week. So for mine, Kamen, this news broke as speculation. It was reported, but of course wanted to wait for the confirmation to welcome not one, not two, but three Chicago Bears to Canton, getting gold jackets. Steve Mongo McMichael, part of that very that historic, one of the all-time great Super Bowl champions. Definitely, as a Bears fan, wish that they had a bit more of a dynasty, but he was right there with Dan Hampton among that great, great defense. Of course, battling ALS, so there's definitely the human side of things as well, where a lot of guys were pulling for him to make it to the Hall of Fame before he became a posthumous inductee. So, congrats to Steve McMichael on that one. And then, of course, two guys that we saw play for quite a while with the Chicago Bears. You could argue he may be going in as a Carolina Panther, but Julius Peppers, by a lot of folks, considered one of the all-time great athletes to play football, just by like from a sheer size, speed. I mean, this guy played basketball at UNC, was also a standout defensive end, absolutely tremendous player who was, fast as receivers. Like there's, you talk to all sorts of guys who played and practiced with him. There was nothing that he could not do. And then, of course, a guy that we're never going to see anyone like him again because the game has simply changed. Devin Hester with the kickoff returns. He is an all-time great player for that one particular role. I know a lot of folks will say, "Oh, he's a specialist, this, that, the other thing." My kind of like thinking on Halls of Fame is like, did you change the game? Could you tell the story of your particular sport without this player? And there's no doubt the impact that Devin Hester had. I mean, the kickoff return to start off the Super Bowl against the Colts. Of course, things went very downhill from there. But there's no doubt that, teams changed entire strategies. Teams would kick the ball, like, touchbacks weren't as prevalent because of how the kickoffs lined up and everything. But teams strategized and said, hey, we'll kick the ball out of bounds, we'll punt out of bounds, and we'll give up yardage. We'll let the Bears offense start farther up on the field because that is less damaging to us than risking a Devin Hester punt return touchdown or something along those lines. So congrats to all three Hall of Famers. Definitely well-deserved in each of their cases.
Yeah, and I got to just echo, obviously all of them deserve it. Julius Peppers is, top 10 all-time in career sacks.
Mm-hmm.
More of a Panther. Steve McMichael, obviously dealing with ALS. It's awesome. I know a lot of his teammates love him. Mike Singletary, when he came to, because he's local here to Chicago still, when he came on my show at work, he was actually visiting McMichael before the show. So very cool for them. And then Devin Hester, when I saw that he got inducted in the Hall of Fame, I stayed up till 4 in the morning watching old videos of him returning kicks from 2:30 to 4 in the morning, Tom. Invested 90 minutes of my time and my sleep just reminiscing of Devin Hester. I thought he should have been first ballot Hall of Famer. In my opinion, if you're the best ever at what you do, you should be in the first ballot Hall of Fame. He is the best returner of all time. Like you said, they changed the rules back. They moved where they kick the ball off. The kick returner, punt returner is never going to be as influential as Hester, but he was the most influential ever. And I would say this, if you're a long snapper, if you're a kicker, if you're a punter, if you're the single best ever at your position, you should be in the first ballot Hall of Fame. I think it took Hester, I think it was 3 years, Tom. Yeah. So do agree with that. And my statement of the week, I was absolutely fuming at the NFL awards. Yeah, I know Lamar should have won the MVP. That was bad. I think that they should have given the coach of the year to the Houston coach. I know Stefanski was great with the Browns, but, Houston Texans getting themselves a playoff appearance after getting the worst record in the division the year before, winning the division. But the biggest robbery of the night with the NFL awards, this is one of the all-time robberies in the history of any award in any country in the world, period. TJ Watt got beyond robbed. Let me give you some numbers, Tom, a little context.
Sure.
Myles Garrett won the Defensive Player of the Year. TJ Watt had 5 more sacks than him, Tom. 5 more sacks, 26 more total tackles. He had 2 more tackles for loss, 5 more pass deflections, 1 more interception. They had the same amount of forced fumbles, and Myles Garrett had 1 fumble recovery. TJ Watt had 3. So across the board, TJ Watt had considerably better statistics. The Steelers, since TJ Watt entered the league, are like 1-11 without him, and 1-12, I think, with the playoff game now. And they're like so good with him. Myles Garrett had a great season. The Cleveland Browns had a great season. Were the people voting for this award all Cleveland Browns people? Because Stefanski got Coach of the Year, which he shouldn't have. Flacco, I could probably agree would Comeback Player of the Year, but that one was obviously, tight vote as well. And then this one, Myles Garrett getting Defensive Player of the Year, I'm shaking my head. He was 7th in the league in sacks this year, and TJ Watt had 5 more sacks than him. I don't know, Tom. This is I don't get how Myles Garrett could possibly get this award over TJ Watt.
Can I interest you in some PFF grading?
Sure. What's
I'm
PFF grading?
No, I'm just like I saw a lot of
was
this.
He
back
rated
and forth.
ahead of? Was he rated ahead of TJ Watt for PFF
yeah,
grading?
And it factors in the number of double teams you face, and it's like he faced. I don't know what the numbers are. I didn't get that nitty gritty into it because I wasn't that particularly invested in that award. But it was something like he faced significantly more double teams than TJ Watt did. So theoretically, TJ Watt got better stats, but on less blocking or whatever you want to define that as. And it's just like if people say the Browns are the best defense,
25% more sacks.
I'm just saying. There's all sorts of folks. I don't really have a strong feeling either way on that one. But who would I have picked for Defensive Player of the Year? I probably would have gone TJ Watt, but I mean, I'm a little bit of a nerd. I would consider L'Jarius Sneed and the way that he played the cornerback position this year. There's a lot of different things, and there's a lot that goes into playing good defense that doesn't necessarily give you ample opportunities for things like interceptions or what have you. But I mean, if we're going to say that
Sauce
quarterback
every year is really good,
if we're going to say that quarterback is the most important position, I think a lot of NFL teams operate under the notion that pass rusher is the second most important. So if we're going by that, then probably TJ Watt.
I don't get it, Tom. I don't get how that award happened. I don't get how Myles Garrett got it. Fantastic player, but TJ Watt he's so underrated. We're not talking about he is one of the all-time greats, Tom. He's the first guy in the history of the National Football League to lead the league in sacks on 3 separate occasions, and he has only 1 Defensive Player of the Year award to his name. I don't know. Doesn't make sense. Show TJ some love. I don't know if you know how much I like TJ Watt because we We don't really talk about the Steelers much on this program because, you know, we just don't. But TJ Watt is probably, I think I was saying this the other day, if we exclude, you know, Chief and, you know, Bear players, probably my favorite player in the NFL
Hmm,
outside of Kansas City and Chicago for sure. If we're going defense, for sure, my favorite defensive player in the National Football League.
there you go.
Yeah. So, anyway, great show. As always, it's been a great football season. There's always off-season news, the NFL draft. There's going to be more football on the show. But like you said, it's not going to be in the show as often as it has been
Mhm.
until the next football season. We'll have some basketball in the coming weeks, some baseball. I know March Madness, NBA playoffs, MLB season, not too far. We might skip a show here or there for the next month until we get deep into March Madness, but you know, more or less a weekly show. It's always a pleasure, Tom. Cannot wait till the next one we do. Have a great day, everyone, as well. All the listeners, viewers, you guys are awesome. Congrats to the Chiefs on the Super Bowl. Three-peat next year. It's coming. Chiefs Kingdom. Mark it down, Tom Casselman, and have a great day.